It's been over a decade since Colombiana hit theaters, but even after all these years, the buzz about a possible sequel hasn't completely died down. In fact, there's still quite a bit of hope floating around, especially among fans who would love to see Zoe Saldana return to the role of Catalia. Back in April 2017, Saldana herself told Glamour magazine that she'd totally be up for Colombiana 2, but she urged fans to speak up about it. Her message was clear: that would be amazing, but you guys have to send a message to producer Luc Besson. He's the one who can make this happen. She sounded excited, even playful, about the idea, saying it would be fun to step back into that intense role again. Interestingly, this wasn't just a one-time mention. Luc Besson actually had Colombiana 2 listed among his upcoming projects back in 2015, when he revealed a whole slate of films under his EuropaCorp production banner. At the time, the list included titles like 9 Lives, which came out in 2016, and Valerian, released in 2017. So the sequel wasn't just wishful thinking, it was genuinely being considered at one point. Now, when we talk about how likely it is for a sequel to get the green light, there are always a few things to consider, like box office performance and how well the original was received by critics. And truthfully, Colombiana didn't exactly blow past the $100 million mark globally, which can be a hurdle. Studios usually prioritize financially successful franchises. But here's the thing, times have changed. Today, nostalgia is a powerful force, and studios are starting to realize that cult favorites like Colombiana still have a dedicated fan base, especially when the lead actor is someone as beloved and bankable as Zoe Saldana. What makes the possibility of a sequel so intriguing is the way the original wrapped up. Catalia's story had this sense of finality. She finally got her revenge against Don Luis, the man who brutally murdered her parents. But even though the ending brought closure, it also left room for a new chapter. We saw Catalia call Danny and reveal her real name, hinting at a fresh start. She was on the run, but it finally closed the darkest chapter of her life. That kind of open-ended finale practically invites a sequel. So how could Colombiana 2 move the story forward? Well, there are a bunch of possibilities. For starters, Catalia is now a free woman, but not exactly in the clear. The FBI is aware of her, and even though she's proven time and again that she's always one step ahead, being a fugitive doesn't allow much room for peace. We could easily imagine a storyline where Catalia tries to build a new life under a new identity, maybe somewhere completely off the grid, but gets dragged back into the world of violence she tried to leave behind. That would make for a strong, emotionally driven sequel that focuses not just on action, but on character evolution. There's also the potential to dive deeper into Catalia's emotional world. We saw her hardened by years of trauma and training, but we also got glimpses of her vulnerability, especially in her relationship with Danny. A sequel could explore whether she reconnects with him or whether she pushes herself further into isolation. Either way, it adds new depth to the story and gives Zoe Saldana even more room to shine. And speaking of Saldana, her star power has only grown since Colombiana came out in 2011. Since then, she's been a central figure in mega franchises like Avatar and Guardians of the Galaxy. So bringing her back in a sequel now wouldn't just be exciting for fans. It would actually make a lot of sense from a commercial standpoint. Her name alone could draw a global audience. If the studio decides to bring in some fresh faces, new villains, allies, or even a younger protege, that added star power could make the sequel feel fresh and exciting, while still staying true to the roots of the original. Another angle that could be explored is Catalia stepping into a mentorship role. Maybe she finds someone who reminds her of her younger self, lost, angry, and driven by vengeance. That could open the door to a whole new storyline, while giving the audience a chance to see Catalia evolve into something more than just a lone assassin. It'd be powerful to see her guide someone away from the path she once took, while still wrestling with her own past. Looking back at Colombiana, one of the film's most compelling aspects was how it balanced intense action with a deep emotional undercurrent. The movie kicked off with such a tragic moment, Catalia witnessing her parents' murder, and never let us forget the weight she carried from that day forward. Her uncle Emilio played a big role in her transformation into a killer, though he never truly wanted that life for her. His death, along with Mama's, added even more fuel to her mission for revenge. By the end, Catalia had orchestrated a brilliant plan to take down Don Luis. Even though he tried to run, she was always a few steps ahead. Using her dogs as part of the final attack was such a smart and brutal touch. It showed just how far ahead she'd been thinking. And while her enemies underestimated her at every turn, Catalia used that to her advantage. She made them believe she was weak, only to strike when they were the most vulnerable. And then there's Danny. His decision to show Catalia's picture to a friend may have set off a chain of events that led the FBI to her, but he didn't do it out of malice. That final phone call between them, where she tells him her real name, was surprisingly tender. It showed that, despite everything, she still had the capacity for trust. It was also her way of saying goodbye, or maybe not. A sequel could definitely explore what happened between them. Did Danny move on? Did Catalia reach out again? Or will fate pull them back together? Even though Colombiana ended on a satisfying note, it didn't completely close the book on Catalia's story. In fact, it felt more like the end of part one. We got closure on her quest for revenge, but not on her future. A sequel could bring that journey full circle. Maybe this time, the conflict comes not from a personal vendetta, but from a choice. Does she go back to her old ways to protect someone she cares about? Or does she keep running? There's so much story still left to tell. Also, with action movies being more popular than ever, and with strong female leads drawing big audiences, it feels like now would be the perfect time to bring Catalia back. Hollywood has finally started giving more space to complex women in action roles, and Colombiana too could ride that wave, especially if the script digs deeper into her psyche. We've already seen Catalia as a fierce and calculated assassin. Now let's see what happens when she's forced to confront the emotional fallout of her past and decide what kind of person she wants to be. Plus, visually, the movie could be stunning. So even though it's been over a decade, the idea of Colombiana 2 still feels exciting. There's a story worth telling, a world worth revisiting, and a character we'd love to see again. Maybe stronger, maybe wiser, but just as fierce. And who knows? If the stars align, we might just see Catalia back on the big screen sooner than we think. And that's that for today's video. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.